Hey everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a build guide for the Player's Handbook 2024 Beyond Sanguine Thief Rogue in Baldur's Gate 3, part of the D&D Player's Handbook 2024 All-in-One Beyond mod by Yoonmoonsik. This one is really fun because it gets some spells and cantrips and special sangromancy die that it is able to use to fuel its abilities, and you can get these back on your sneak attacks. Even cooler, if you're below 50% health, you can also then just recover your health. There's a variety of different abilities here we'll be breaking down. I'll be covering the build all the way from level 1. So we'll be starting off as a rogue, obviously, here. Now, with this, there are changes. That's one thing that comes with the 2024 Player's Handbook. Just want to also mention that short rests won't recover your health. You actually use your hit point die, which is actually something that this subclass uses. So you also get weapon masteries with Nick, Slow, and Vex there. And for our ability scores, dexterity obviously being our major stat here. And it actually doesn't say it anywhere, but the spellcasting modifier for those spells is actually going to be our intelligence score. So we could go with a stats bit or something like this. Just note the rogue is kind of squishy, even though they got things like, they got some defensive abilities like evasion and all that, but you could also then put your intelligence points to your constitution, swap those around. Like to have at least a neutral wisdom save, just because those are some of the most brutal to get hit with. And we can also use like the gloves of dexterity, get our dexterity score very high with this. So the gloves of dexterity are also changed with this mod, which actually kind of fits with this, but you can also put the dexterity to 16 and put those points into our charisma. And once we hit level 2, we get our good old-fashioned bonus action dash, disengage, and hide. Nothing changed there, but level 3 is where everything changes. So with the Sanguine Thief here, so across dark alleyways, across Aetheris, deals are made with coin and blood. With fewer enterprising roads, it poses the question, why not both? Using blood magic beyond the limits of their own vitality, when cornered, Sanguine Thieves unleash this power in a hail of crimson darts or face a foe's blade, leaving nothing behind but a red mist. And yeah, they actually can turn into a mist of blood. That's their level 11 bloody exit that they get. For our cantrips, I think that the Hellfire one actually kind of makes a little bit of sense to throw onto this type of build, but personal preference really, the true best would probably be Mage Hand, dropping potions for a free action and then having your Mage Hand throw them to you. Toll the Dead is also a nice one with a Wisdom save, which is a little easier to land in the early game. Firebolt's nice, but this mod also has finger guns, which does more damage, and it's force damage. I think this is the best one if you can get behind using this. And hey, you can just pretend that you're shooting blood out of your fingers, I guess, because force damage is red. We also got Blood Bolt, which would make sense to have on here too. So these two are one of the some of the most damaging options. If you're going with Blood Bolt, you will recover hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. That's like a 2, 3, or 4. This does more raw damage, but you could alternative use Toll the Dead. I'm also going to throw in Green Flame Blade, Booming Blades there too, but they are changed to not give you the extra attacks. Not that the rogue gets it, but we also here get to choose some spells. Now, Magic Missile is nice because it's guaranteed damage. I just like that for hitting targets. Shield, not a bad choice, giving us a +5 to armor class. With lower constitution score, we need a bit of extra survivability. I also like the Bloodbane rune. It gives us additional radiant damage as a concentration. And it kind of opens up some builds because we can then do some radiating orb style stuff, despite us not really having multiple attacks to really benefit from that. There's also things like Blood Rush, which can give us a bit of healing, but I do think Magic Missile and Shield are like two very nice spells to have. Find Familiar Raven to blind enemies can set up your sneak attacks, so that's something else that could be nice as well. Thunderwave for the pushback is also a considerable option. I just think that getting the blind to set up sneak attacks ends up being a good option from the early game all the way through to the end game, and it also sometimes can eat up an attack that would normally hit your teammates. We get to choose another spell at level 4. There's also Spellfire Flare, which is really nice. This is from the Spellfire Sorcery, which is really fun. So I recommend checking this one out. It's radiant damage, which has its pros and cons. Now, one thing that actually fits here, most of the feats are changed, except Savage Attacker, which ends up being our best feat because this re-rolls our attack and our sneak attack damage. So flat out DPS boost. You could go with an increase to our constitution or dexterity if you prefer, but I think that just works really well. Level 5 gives us our Cunning Strike. So when you deal sneak attack damage, you can add one of the Cunning Strike effects, and you also get Uncanny Dodge, letting you take half damage. So yeah, that is nice. Uncanny Dodge helps the rogue stay alive a little bit longer when other classes are getting their extra attack at level 5. But level 6, Bloody Blades. When you score a critical hit, you get additional 1d8 of damage. And typically, whenever there's damage die involved with crits, it actually ends up being like, this could be a 2d8 potentially, because they end up giving that extra damage die onto a lot of different abilities. So something to keep in mind there. The Crater Flesh Gloves are an example of that in the base game. Level 7 gives us Evasion, which half less damage from dexterity saves. If we succeed, we don't take any damage at all. Reliable Talent. Whenever you make an ability check with skill you're proficient in, the lowest you can roll is a 10. Nice. We also get access to some more spells. Scorching Ray is always a good choice. I like Hold Person because this gives us free crits, and we're a character that, you know, gets an extra 1d8 on crits. So that could be very nice. Shadowblade's nerfed to now be a concentration, so as a heads up on that. And there's also things like darkness, which you can hide out in, and yeah, that's darkness for you. Makes a rogue feel really roguish. I think that hold person's nice. Another thing, Misty Step is actually also nerfed. It does 9-meter dash, and if you have Misty Step in like Scorching Ray, you can only cast one per turn. One spell, one turn. New rule. So that does impact some of the choices that you could be making, but it's Misty Step. It's nice. It gets you in close to be able to attack enemies. So despite only being 9 meters of range, this is just a little cost for a big gain at times, because getting a sneak attack off with our melee attack may be worth doing, especially with things like Mage Slayer. This is crazy. So damaging a creature that's concentrating will give them disadvantage on the saving throw, and if we fail a intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw, we can then choose to succeed. That's pretty good. And it gives us that +1 to dexterity. I think Mage Slayer is actually massively boosted in this, especially due to how Baldur's Gate 3 plays out. I think this is good. We become somewhat of a Mage Slayer, getting Misty Step to close the distances, do our sneak attack, and force a reroll on their concentration. Level 9, just a level, nothing else there. Level 10, however, gives us another cantrip and spell. We can then, as mentioned, Mage Hand with a water bottle or healing potion. Water bottles actually don't deal any extra damage, it's 1d4 of cold damage now, so it's best to just use that for a healing potion. And we also get some more spells that we can choose from. Blood Wisp makes a lot of sense here, so whenever we have this, it'll give us additional damage on our spells. But to make this really worth it, we'd have to have like Scorching Ray, and then it gets a little costly. Tasha's Mind Whip can be nice to make it so they can only take an action or a bonus action on the next turn. Mind Spike giving a little extra damage. Mirror Image for a +9 armor class, reducing by 1 every time you get attacked. I like Rhyme's Binding Ice, which will reduce the target's movement speed to 0 and keep them in place. Honestly, a very powerful spell. It's a Constitution save, which is a little tricky, but I really like Scorching Ray with a Blood Wisp. Actually, we'll take Blood Wisp just because it fits here thematically, and it's a new spell, so we want to showcase it. We'll then, you could go with the other spells I mentioned there. We'll then go with it. We got our extra feat at level 10. An ability score improvement on our dexterity is a solid option. You could also increase our intelligence if you prefer casting, or constitution if you want to give yourself some more survivability. Level 11 gives us our improved Cunning Strike, so you can use 2 Cunning Strike effects when we use our sneak attack damage, and we got our Bloody Exit now. So when a creature hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to expend 3 hit die or sangromancy die to turn into a Bloody Mist. Triggering the sneak attack automatically misses you, and you get the gaseous form, and next melee attack you deal will do an additional 3d8 of necrotic damage. Pretty good stuff there. And we also can take another spell here. I guess we'll add on Scorching Ray now just to complete the, we got our buff, we got our damage spell. And level 12 gives us one more spell choice, which I'm going to take Rhyme's Binding Ice. I know blue and red are opposites, but stopping a target from moving is kiting them, and it's really effective on a rogue, so it makes sense. If you really want to go Bloodbane route, it makes sense for this. It's a concentration that'll give us an additional 1d4 of radiant damage on our attacks. It could be worth taking if you like that. And we also get to take our last feat. Spell Snipers change to give ourselves so we don't get disadvantage on close range attacks, and we can do long range attacks 50% further. There's also other feats that got added to this game. There's actually some from the Tasha's Cauldron and everything, but the Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerun that this is newest update. So you can have some fun with these ones here. I did a full video breaking down all the different feats, so you can check that out if you want, but I'm just going to keep it simple, keep it powerful. We're going to go with either a Constitution increase or an Intelligence increase, and I think the Constitution increase is a little bit better at this point. And we can actually get our stats up a little bit higher. We got 19 Constitution, 22 Dex, and 18 Intelligence. This is because there's some changes. Things like the Amulet of Greater Health now puts our Constitution up to a +3. The Gloves of Dexterity give you a +3 to Dexterity up to 22. And the Headband of Intellect gives you an Intelligence of +2 up to 22. So Health, Dexterity, and more of our Intelligence for spellcasting. Pretty good. I also have the Deathstalker Mantle. If you're not Dirge, there's a lot of other ones like the Cloak of Absorption, the Cloak of Displacement, and even like the Cloak of Evasion. Protection, my bad. We also have things like the Ballast Armor in the late game. Early game, it's going to be the best available light armor. Penumbral Armor for the boost to our stealth checks. Like the Rogue just has very limited options the early game. Protexy Spark Swall could be an option though, because when you have a concentration, you get a +1 to your armor class, and then you could have someone put Mage Armor on yourself, and you could use like lightning charge type weapons and do some sneak attacks with the bow. There's options in the early game, but late game, the Ballast Armor, because this is one of the few items that didn't end up getting like too big of a nerf. You can still deal the double damage with the piercing damage. And I also have the Boots of Stormy Clamor on, as this will give us the target reverberation, which is really nice. We also got for rings, I like to force free crits because we got powerful crits, so Killer Sweetheart is a solid option. You could also go with the Bend the Mystic Scoundrel, which will let you do a bonus action spell, which actually kind of fits on here a little bit, so we can throw that one on. Because then you can do like hold person after a sneak attack, and then killer sweetheart for free crit, and greater health for extra health. Best daggers would be the late game daggers. Obviously, they're pretty strong. Dolor Amaris can give us additional critical hit damage for 7 points, and the Baldur will actually end up doubling that, so that's pretty good. I also like the cold snap. Chilled is not as good as it used to be, but it's still okay, which will make the target take an additional 1d4 of cold damage on their if you hit them with a cold spell. The armor class +1 is nice too. And we also have other things like the Mind Sundering Dagger for a little extra damage. The Stillmaker gives you a level 3 hold person. Okay, it's a cool appearance weapon though. There's also the Susur Dagger in Act 1, which you can, I'm not sure why it's not popping up, but basically with the Susur Dagger, you can silence targets on hit. Just be mindful if you have someone else using thunder damage, they can't end up using the actual thunder damage against that target. And this weapon is also changed to do a 2d4 of damage, so it's actually a little bit higher damage. Kind of funny that Dirge's dagger is only a 1d4. Well, the Susur dagger is a 2d4. Now we don't need to use the orange red dagger here in our main hand because we already are giving vulnerability to piercing damage. So in the offhand, it will give us that +1 to AC. And it lets us retaliate and gain True Strike against the enemy, giving advantage on the attack, which then sets up our Crimson Mischief in the main hand to do 7 additional piercing, which turns into 14 additional piercing with our cloak that we have on, or our chest armor that we have on, and it deals an additional 1d4 piercing against targets with 50% less health. So these are the best. Obviously, there's so many daggers in the game. You can swap them around as you get new ones, and I do have a video on the top daggers ranked on a tier list if you're curious. So now when we get into combat, so we have a few spells that we could use. We also have our 18 hit point dies, sangromancy dies, and we have a sneak attack charge. Now, I also got the steady aim here, which will let us get advantage on our next attack roll, which will set up a sneak attack. Unfortunately, we're not in the prime position to do a sneak attack here, so that is something to keep in mind. You have to have advantage against them. So Risky Ring can actually be a nice option here. I like to also turn off dual wielding just because we have a bonus action that we want to keep for something else. So I'm actually going to start off just with a weapon attack here. I don't have advantage against the target, but the change to initiative actually kind of nerfs this as well, because typically you'd have multiple of your team members moving together so you can move around and set up the rogue. And that's kind of like an area where the rogue gets a little bit of a nerf with this mod, is because the initiative die is now at d20, so your rogue's less likely to move with your same team members, so you're less likely to get the advantage. I'm doing this solo, so obviously it makes it a lot harder. I'm just going to go with a weapon attack so that I can... Oh, we got it. Good, good, good. So this lets me do what I want to do next. So I have a hold person, which I'm going to have a 94% chance of holding this person. This gives us a sneak attack crit. So yeah, that's one less target that has a turn. In the action economy, we're now a +1 on this target in total. And we just got hit and critical miss here. Perfect. So we got our True Strike riposte. Amazing. So I can weaponize a reaction. I want to roll the free crit. Whoa, that was crazy. I somehow got the radiant damage reflected back to me, broke my concentration on hold person. Oh my goodness. You know what it was? It was True Strike. So True Strike's different in 2024 Player's Handbook, where it'll do radiant damage on the target. You get the choice normally, but it forced it upon me. So I did my damage on my attack there, and then we got our additional radiant damage and necrotic damage. And it re-rolled it, so it gave it even higher. And then it did it basically gave me 17 necrotic damage and then 17 radiant damage. Got hit with both of that there. So yeah, that hurt really bad. So I guess lesson learned, don't do that. Both targets are around 50 health, and I'm actually, somehow I got advantage on him. We're gonna take it. So yeah, we got our sneak attack on 92. That is nice. What's funny is our weapon normally only did a 1d6 of damage. We got a 5 from the reroll, +2, +6 from dexterity mod, plus 26 piercing from the 66 reroll, +7 from Crimson Mischief, equals 46, and then it's vulnerable, so that doubled it. And then we also got that necrotic damage ranked off on him. Oh, I see how they did it. So I was talking about the 1d8. It's actually, it looks like it does a 1d4, but since it is a critical hit, they encountered that. So I was kind of curious about that. I didn't end up testing it a little earlier when I was playing with this mod, but they do a 1d4 and then the crit actually turns into a 1d, or I guess it's a little bit more than a 1d8. That's interesting. Cool. See the behind the scenes of a mod. Since we now have our ability to cast another spell, we're going to go with that. So boom, going to hold person again. So yeah. Also, we have our Steel Blood too, so when we do sneak attack damage, we can restore one of our sangromancy die. So we go ahead with that and pop that if we wanted to, and this gives us our stolen power. One of these dies back. Sangromancy dies are just basically hit point die. I'm going to use Sonic Backlash. We've got Illithid abilities. This can help too. Oh, she's holding her concentration in darkness. How nice. Now, this is one thing I want to mention is that there is items that give you the ability to see in the dark, like the Eversight Ring, which is really nice here. Let's see. I can still make the attack though. So yeah, darkness is a little different in terms of the 2024 rule set. So disadvantage on attack rolls whenever you're blinded. That was fine because he was held personed. So that means that whenever he is there, he is basically an automatic hit, critical hit. So even if you have the worst disadvantage and a -1,000,000 to your attack rolls, you can still hit. So this is nice because then I got the ability 91%. We got it. Cool. It broke there. Concentration 2. And then we get our turn back. And GG's. It is all ogre. Huge, huge, huge. I have never seen that. I haven't seen that in a while. 156 piercing damage on attack. So yeah, you can do some pretty big hits there if you got the right setup. So while this mod does nerf a lot of things, you can still pop off and hit a 156 piercing with a +8 necrotic damage on a sneak attack. That is crazy. And then also hit them for another 12 damage. So that's 176 damage on a single sneak attack. That is nuts. So yeah, you can do some pretty crazy stuff with this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and go check out the 2024 Player's Handbook All-in-One Beyond mod by Yoonmoonsik. It's really great. And I hope you guys all have a great day.